Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the latest episode of Daredevil Born Again. It was called Art for Art's Sake, and as it starts, Mayor Fisk is briefed on Angela's escape from Muse at the hands of Daredevil, and is told that she has said that she thought she could lead the authorities back to his hideout. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Angela has flashbacks to her ordeal and rescue, as Matt has a shower shag with his girlfriend, Heather, before talking with her about her concerns over his denial of his past and ongoing trauma. He then is confronted by his investigator who doesn't like that Matt confronted Muse as Daredevil. Fisk and his consigliere, Buck, talk about how Matt took Fisk and his sprawling enterprise down violently and extrajudicially, much to Fisk's dismay, and about how Matt must be dealt with. Matt visits Angela in the hospital as the cops investigate Muse's lair. Vanessa, meanwhile, visits with the crime family leader, Luca, who suggests a change in how things are being done, as Fisk is briefed by a detective on who the cops think Muse is, based on what they found at his hideout, and it turns out they're right. At the same time, Muse, aka Bastion, meets with Vanessa for a revealing and violent therapy session in which she figures out that he's Muse, and he knocks her into a wall before tying her to a chair and starting to drain her of her blood after donning his Muse costume, and telling her to call him Muse, as well as that he credits her for him being able to discover his true self and to live as that person. Matt goes to Muse's hideout and finds that Muse has been painting Heather, and the cops realize Muse is seeing her as she starts berating Muse in an attempt to throw him off guard, after which she attacks him, but it doesn't go well because he starts to strangle her, at which point Daredevil comes in and they fight as the cops close in. During the scuffle, Heather is able to pick up a gun that Muse had been holding, which had dropped to the floor, and shoot him dead, after which Matt leaves, knowing that the cops are on their way, but not before somehow stabilizing Heather. When Fisk is later briefed on what happened in the office, which is that it seems that Daredevil was there, he instructs his officers that it was really they who did their jobs and took down Muse without any involvement from Daredevil. Fisk's underling, Daniel, then threatens BB not to report on Daredevil's involvement. Matt visits Heather as she recovers, and she tells him she thinks she saw Daredevil and that she thinks he said her name when he was there, before they hear on the news that Mayor Fisk's task force shot Muse, which of course isn't true. Vanessa sends a text to Luca with what would seem to be the location of a target that he's going to deal with, and it would seem that the target is Fisk, but Lucas doesn't get a chance to kill him because Fisk's main man, Buck, takes Luca out. And that's where the episode ended. So, on the one hand, I did like this episode. I liked the action. I liked, that we're seeing more of Fisk trying to walk that line between being the mayor and being a gangster, which, by the way, other mayors in real life have done in cities all over the place, and governors and presidents and what have you. So it's just very interesting. And, it's great that Daredevil is back in action. The action sequences were very cool, or in this episode, really, there was only one. So I like all of that. And, the therapy session scene where Bastion sort of reveals that he's Muse, and it just gets kind of creepy, and then Heather's in danger, and so I thought that was all very well done. But there were a couple things about this episode I didn't like. There were more than one or two very contrived conveniences, like the cops so easily figuring out who Muse was, and they, lay out the things that led them to that discovery, and it makes sense, but like it was done via exposition dump. They don't show them going through the motions of making the discoveries that they make that lead them to who he is. They kind of had to lay it out in dialogue in a very exposition dumpy way. And then they also figure out that he happens to be in Heather's office, that he's been seeing Heather, and then they go there, and what do you know, he's there, which, how they came to that conclusion wasn't terribly clear. And once again, it was laid out in dialogue in the same scene as they laid out his backstory, which, by the way, they do as well via exposition dump, so they can explain how he knows a martial art, so that it doesn't seem weird that he was able to hold his own against Matt as well as he did. And it was just a lot of expedition just being thrown at us in like a minute and a half. None of it was depicted on screen as action. And so that's bad, but it's even worse when you consider that when they did, for example, the backstory of Bullseye, it was very well laid out with flashbacks and so forth. And of course, the same for Fist. But now they just they just give you a few lines of dialogue that explains, you know, how he knows Taekwondo, how they figured out who he was, and how they figured out he was seeing Heather, like all within 2 minutes. And then on top of that, they've now killed him off. They had this very interesting villain that was very creepy, and they just killed him off. And so, why? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. I didn't think that was good. So, yeah, I just, you know, I don't know why they did any of those things. Maybe in the next few episodes, it won't seem so bad that they did all this stuff, but like, I don't know. They just, you know, exposition dumping like that is just very lazy, and it just makes everything seem contrived and convenient, and it's not good form. And killing the best villain they've had so far in this season, you know, apart from Fisk, it just I don't know. So that's all I can say. I'm gonna get out of here. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.